2026 might go down as one of the worst years in video game history, with Xbox planning to lay off 3,200 employees over the next fiscal year and cutting ties with 4 of its own game studios. But I don't think that comes even close to what Sony has managed to accomplish in 2026. Earlier in the year, Sony shut down critically acclaimed remake studio Bluepoint Games, the team behind the amazing Shadow of the Colossus remake and the Demon's Souls remake. Both amazing games, yet that wasn't good enough for Sony. When they couldn't greenlight any projects, they just shut them down. Then after years of obsessing about live service games, they turn around and fire hundreds of employees from their only good live service studio, which was the only studio they have that could work on a live service game that was actually successful. Instead of scaling back Destiny 2 and releasing less content and lowering projections, they just fired the whole team. But the final straw that broke PlayStation gamers' backs came on July 1st, 2026. Right before the 4th of July holiday weekend. They announced they were completely discontinuing the production of physical media, and the PS6 would be a digital-only console. And personally, after hearing this news, just like everyone else, there was of course confusion and anger, but after that settled in over the last few days, I had a realization. Do I actually need a new console? Do I need the PS6? And I came to the conclusion that I don't. That's weird to say for me because I've bought almost every new console at launch for my whole life. I'm always so excited for these launches. Just at the beginning of this generation in 2020, I feverishly refreshed every website like Target, Walmart, Amazon, and Best Buy just to get my hands on the PS5. And now in 2026, I'm at the point where I could care less about the PS6, especially with the rising prices going on right now and this anti-consumer move with the digital-only push. These companies think they control us, but they're so wrong, man. A lot of us are sick of this stuff. I'm done being overcharged for something that in the end I don't actually need. I always thought there would always be a disk drive. I thought Microsoft was going to be first, but Sony? I honestly thought they would be the last bastion of hope for disk. I mean, for God's sakes, they literally invented the Blu-ray. And after Nintendo came out with game key cards, I was like, man, okay, Sony's our only option now. But compared to the no disc and digital only, I'll take the game key cards at any point. At least you can share those with friends or sell them online. If we knew this was a possibility, I know a lot more people would have supported physical more. And the fact that we have Sony and Rockstar doing this at the same time, it just feels wrong, man. GTA 6 is going digital only, and the game case will be completely empty. And guess what? The game isn't cheaper either. So none of the savings from not producing a disc are being passed on to the consumer. It's not only not cheaper, it's tied for the most expensive game of the whole generation with Mario Kart World at $80. Make no mistake, this is the final straw for game ownership. Once it happens, I don't see it going back, unless another company comes in and fills that market. This will be the slow death of the used games market, and the slow death of sharing games with family and friends, and the quick rise of a digital store monopoly. PlayStation from here on out will control everything. What I've come to realize over the last couple years is that this just isn't the same PlayStation it used to be. The old guard of PlayStation is gone. The team that shot the PlayStation 4 into the stratosphere and made PS5 as successful as it is just isn't there anymore. The Jack Trittons, the Sean Laydens, the Andrew Houses, and Shuhei Yoshidas. Shuhei Yoshida was the one in the left of that used game video that basically won the PlayStation 4 the console war, and Xbox has never recovered from it. So when you don't have people like that making decisions at Sony anymore, I guess what else can we expect? Legendary developers like David Jaffe that created God of War and Twisted Metal, not even with the company anymore. John Garvin and Jeff Ross, the ones that made Days Gone. They just let them walk away from the company. And while I'm on the subject of Days Gone, Sean Layden was one of the biggest supporters of that game. So when he left the company, Days Gone 2's days were numbered.
Yeah, no, what I will say though regarding Sean, and as soon as Sean was gone, yeah, Days Gone 2 was dead.
And then after that, the sequel just never got greenlit. A franchise that's well above 10 million copies now, and you just say no to a sequel? Still to this day, I don't understand that decision. Quantic Dream and David Cage isn't even the same anymore. They started making weird cartoony games instead of games like Detroit Become Human and Heavy Rain. I know they're not a first-party studio, but they made PlayStation exclusives for the whole PS3 and PS4 generation. I know they're working on a Star Wars game, but man, they really need something from them. I'd say they've done a pretty good job with contracting exclusives for their console that aren't first party, like Death Stranding 2 and Stellar Blade, but the first party has been lacking big time this generation. Soros just didn't get me excited like Returnal did, and Ghost of Yotei didn't get me excited like Ghost of Tsushima did. Amy Hennig and Jason Rubin and Bruce Straley, all gone from Naughty Dog. The Last of Us, it's in my personal top 3 games of all time. That's why I named my daughter after Ellie. But when I named my daughter after Ellie, I named her after this Ellie. not this one, which I'm kind of ashamed that my daughter is even closely related to this character now. I could have never imagined the direction they would go with this series. But I don't know if I like the direction Naughty Dog is going nowadays. They canceled the Last of Us multiplayer game, which was just one of the dumbest decisions of all time. Sony wanted a live service game, that would have been their biggest one. Easily. An Intergalactic? I mean, I don't know, man. We haven't got a release date and it could possibly miss this whole console generation. Can you imagine a whole console generation without a Naughty Dog game? What the hell is going on over there? Not including remakes and remasters. We went from 3 Uncharted games and The Last of Us during the 7th generation, then 2 more Uncharted games and The Last of Us Part 2 in the 8th generation, to absolutely nothing in the 9th generation so far. And I understand times have changed, but the fact that they've done nothing so far this generation other than a remake and a remaster, and canceling The Last of Us Online, I'm starting to wonder what the hell is going on over there. Maybe Intergalactic is going to be the next Mass Effect or something, but I'm starting to get worried that they're going to miss the PS5 completely. PlayStation under Herman Holst has been so bad, I can't think of anything they've done positive, other than focus way too much on live service games and destroy PlayStation's legacy. The PS4 executive team single-handedly convinced millions of people, including myself, to ditch the Xbox One for the PlayStation 4. And unless something changes or someone gets fired, I don't know if I'll ever trust this brand again. I think it's funny how Sony was so confident and arrogant that they didn't even poll the community or ask developers what they thought about this digital-only console. They just dropped the news on everybody in some random blog. But I was the most surprised when Hideo Kojima came out and he was disappointed. When the most legendary developer in the world that created your best exclusive of the whole generation is calling your strategy scary, I don't know what the hell you're doing. It's not about the players, and evidently it's not about the developers either. The funny thing with this all-digital strategy, how many people are going to actually buy full-price games? The biggest losers, in my opinion, if we go all-digital, will be the middle-tier AA games. The mass market will always shell out money for the biggest titles like Grand Theft Auto 6 or Witcher 4, but what about the games that are smaller like Chronos: A New Dawn or A Plague Tale Requiem? A lot of times when there's a lot of games coming out, when it's digital, it's so hard to pull that trigger to pay that full price. It's so enticing just to wait for a sale. And you know, when games don't do really well at launch, a lot of times these studios get shut down. And I find myself doing this a lot. When a lot of games are coming out, I'll use a service like GameFly to rent the newest games I'm not sure about. Then once I figure out if I like it, I'll select the keep it option and they'll send me a case and manual at a lower price. It's really awesome. But GameFly is going to be obsolete without physical games. Unless people are just going to be renting older games and nothing new, I don't know how they're going to survive. So you can say goodbye to the option of trying out games. There will be a lot less discovery, meaning fewer people buying games, fewer people buying their DLCs, and a lot more people completely skipping out on the AA games. And to me, those are some of my favorite games every year. Backwards compatibility, which was one of the biggest wins of the past 2 generations, is going to be completely gone. Instead of continuing to build the backlog going into PS6, they're just going to cut it off. Just look at PlayStation's own YouTube account. Just 4 years ago, they were showing off backwards compatibility like it was a feature, and now they could care less.
PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible with more than 4,000 PlayStation 4 games, so you can continue to enjoy your PS4 games collection on your PS5. And for PS4 games on Blu-ray disc, if your PS5 console has a disc drive, simply pop a disc into your PS5 to install and play. However you choose to play, keep those incredible PS4 memories alive with backwards compatibility on PlayStation 5.
And in case Sony forgot that players still like backwards compatibility, I want to play a clip and let's listen to this crowd.
Last year, the team decided to tackle a feature that has been consistently at the top of your request list. And while we weren't sure it was possible, today, I'm pleased to announce Xbox One backward compatibility. Your Xbox 360 games. The games you've invested your time and money in, and the games you want to continue to play will be playable natively on your Xbox One. That's why 2 years ago, we launched the Xbox Backward Compatibility Program to bring Xbox 360 games to your Xbox One. And we've seen tremendous growth in the program. Today, our library of games stands at 385 titles, and over half of Xbox One gamers have played a backward-compatible game. But I've heard your feedback, and you want more. Today, I'm pleased to announce an exciting expansion to the program.
Did you hear the excitement when the crowd knew that their games that they own were going to go forward to the next generation? When you go to the store and you pick up a game, of course, it's more of a hassle and it's harder to do. But the effort you put in to obtain the game was the experience. Especially with your kids, it's so fun to take them into the game store or Walmart or wherever and see how excited they are to look in the game case. And then on the way home, we'll pick up a pizza or get some ice cream on the way. It's a family event at that point. And on top of that, they're rewarded with something physical that they can keep and look back at years later. If you buy them a digital copy, that memory is just lost to UI, menus, and time. Or if it's far enough in the future, it'll just disappear from your library. And I also want to call out the sleazy tactics used by these publishers for the digital versions. They make it way more enticing than a physical version, with things like pre-order incentives and 3-day early access, or pre-order bonuses with skins and extra DLC packs. And also the game launches the night before at like 11 p.m., which in my opinion is the biggest benefit of everything. You don't have to wait the extra 24 hours to get your game. You can get the head start and get a whole night of gaming in. And you know with the internet, no one wants to get spoiled, so everybody's going to try and jump in early. I'm guilty of doing this a few times myself. I remember being so excited for Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes that I bought the collector's editions for the games, and I also pre-ordered the game digitally so I could play them at midnight. It was really dumb, but I was also willing to pay the extra money to get that extra day. That's how excited I was. It's like when you buy one of those Lightning Lane multi-passes at Disney World so you don't have to wait in line for rides, and those usually cost up to like $45 a day to get. People are willing to pay to not wait. And you know, the funny thing about the digital versus physical stats that they're just throwing out to the internet, they have not only skewed the stats by lying to us about the comparisons, but they've been giving digital all the incentives for years. Can you imagine if it was the physical version of these games that got the pre-order bonuses and the early access, and the digital versions got nothing? People would be running out to the stores to get their physical copies every single time. I also gotta say, I'm so sick of hearing a specific set of people saying that the digital future was inevitable, that they thought the PS7 would be the generation that we'd go all digital, that they didn't think it would be as early as the PS6, and they're just surprised.
Like, I knew this was coming, I just didn't think it would be this fast. I mean, after the announcement was made, Sony's stocks climbed by 7%. It was, despite all of our outrage, a significant success. A success that is, again, much larger than just, oh, some extra revenue from an already dying part of the industry.
But when I hear that, I'm always thinking, why? Why does it have to happen for the PS6 or the PS7? Physical media will always be timeless. People are always going to want it. There's always going to be a younger generation growing up that will eventually have dispensable income and will want to come back and buy their favorite games. It's not like in 2028 it's suddenly a year that physical media goes out of style. It won't even be out of style in 50 years. I mean, vinyl records are more popular than ever. Even CDs are gaining traction. So why does an older way of buying media have to die, other than the greedy corporations wanting it to? I just want people to stop saying digital is inevitable. It doesn't have to be that way. There will always be people that want to buy and collect video games. And I also gotta point out how game sales are tracked. If someone buys a digital game at launch and then buys a physical game years later on eBay, only one of those sales are gonna show up to Sony, the digital one at launch. They can't see that used game sale on eBay because it's sold by an individual. So that physical sale is never gonna get tracked and included in those digital versus physical stats. But that doesn't change the fact that the person decided to buy it physically. But if we flip the example and someone buys a physical game at launch from Amazon, for example, and then years later they buy the game digitally on the PlayStation Store, say during a Black Friday or summer sale, Sony's gonna see both the sales. Because you can't buy a digital game off eBay, digital sales are never hidden from Sony. It's not like the physical ones that are just hiding in the shadows. Just think of all the physical game sales that are missing from the stats. The used game market is a $7.2 billion industry, and Sony is trying to kill it off completely. And of course they are. They want the whole damn pie. And I think they know this. They're trying to pass it off like physical sales don't matter and it's so minute, but they know there's a lot more out there and they want it. They want all of it, man. Next, I want to address a video of a clip going around right now from Luis Rossmann, and he said he doesn't care if discs go away because we're focusing on the wrong issue, that DRM is the main problem.
And today we're going to be talking about Sony discontinuing the idea of having physical media for your games and why I don't care. Many of you may be thinking, Lewis, why don't you care about this? Don't you care about ownership? I can't believe you said that you don't care that Sony is not giving you a physical copy of your game anymore. Honestly, couldn't give a fuck. Completely irrelevant, in my opinion, and I'm going to show you why. Yes, Sony does like to take things away from you that you already bought and paid for. They recently did this, where they said, as of September 1st, 2026, because play has no limits, you will no longer be able to watch any of your previously purchased Studio Canal content. But they can do that to physical media too. Exhibit A, The Crew, the game that started the Stop Killing Games movement. That's a physical disc. Do you care that you have the physical disc? Does having a copy of the disc make any change? What matters is digital rights management and required connectivity to an online server.
Alright, I want to respond to this first part. Around the internet, The Crew is the most infamous and most used example for a disc-based game that has shitty DRM. Even though it's on a disc, the game requires you to still connect to a server. And when the servers were taken offline, the game was rendered useless. Essentially, the disc is just a coaster now. And yes, this is absolutely one of the worst uses of physical media any gamer will ever run across. But The Crew is part of the minority. When it comes to games that are actually playable on disc, if you reference a site like doesitplay.com and confirm that most discs are completely playable offline, over 90% in fact, and 3% of the games cannot be played without an internet connection and are part of the red category. These are the discs that will eventually become useless 10 or 20 years from now. So while we can agree that The Crew is a great example of terrible DRM for a disc-based release, the majority of games released on disc today still work great and protect your ownership of that game. Let's listen to the next part.
I would much rather have a game that has no DRM, no requirement to connect to a server that I don't have a physical copy of, than I would a game that I get a physical copy of. Having a physical copy of a game does absolutely fucking nothing to ensure that the game remains playable over time. And that is my point. When I see people getting angry over not having a physical game, you shouldn't care. You should be able to download your game that you get the code to and burn it to a DVD or a Blu-ray disc if you want, or play it off of your hard drive. You should be fine having an only digital copy of your game. You should be excited that you have a digital-only copy of your game. The problem is not the fact that you don't have a physical copy of it anymore. The problem is that they come with digital rights management that does not allow you to do what you want with what you bought and paid for. And the other problem with it is that it requires connectivity to an online server in order to work.
Now, for this portion where he's talking about where he would much rather have a digital copy and the ability to burn the game on his own disc, well, I think that would be awesome. Why can't we just get a good physical disc to begin with? Maybe it's just me, but I love buying an official product. I want a fully packaged disc that was made by the developer and sold to me. I don't want to have to scrounge through files and have to burn things on disc myself. And two, the game wouldn't even have a box or have cover art and everything we've come to expect from video games over the years. I hear this opinion a lot from PC players. They become so accustomed to using Steam and not having physical media that they struggle seeing the value of the physical side of the purchase. I love getting that official game case and disc. I love seeing the artwork and the cover of the game. Every new Final Fantasy game has amazing artwork. I love seeing the artwork on the inside of the case, behind the disc. I love seeing the artwork on the disc, and in rare cases, maybe it'll even come with a manual. And yes, of course, we don't want disc releases like The Crew, or games like Hogwarts Legacy, which you can't even get out of the tutorial section without updating the game. Those releases should be shamed and are bullshit. But again, those are the minority. It's just a small subset of games. And then I have one more section I want to listen to and I'll respond after.
In order for you to have ownership of what you bought and paid for, it's not just about having something that's shiny that you can see in your hand. It is about buying products that are not sold with this type of crap. I'll give you an example. GOG, Good Old Games, GOG.com. These are games that are sold with no DRM. You can go to GOG.com right now and you can buy games that are digital rights management free. No DRM, these are games that you can download and that you can copy and that you can burn to a piece of physical media yourself. I was told that games on GOG are DRM free. Is that true? true. You can burn the installer parts to disks, and you'll get a prompt to switch disks. Actually, playing the games from disk will vary from game to game, but yeah, you can actually buy games at this point in time that don't have digital rights management. Now, when you buy games from those websites, you won't get physical media, but because they don't have digital rights management on them, you can make your own physical media of the game, and you can play it however you want. The game will work in 2026, the game will work next year, the game will work in 2036, the game will work in 2096 if the world is still here by then. And that's what matters. I want to make sure that everybody watching this video keeps their eye on the ball. Whether or not you have access to physical media does not matter at all. You can make your own physical media of the game. Just because you can hold the game in your hand does not mean that they won't take it away from you. And the proof is right fucking there. Demand that the games that you purchase don't have digital rights management on them. Stop buying games if they have digital rights management on them, and stop playing things that require connectivity to somebody else's server in order to work. It's one thing if it's a choice to connect to their server, it's another if it's a requirement.
Now, this is just more talk about having the digital copy and being able to burn it yourself. But for my research on burning disk, it's not great for long term. Let me explain why. I pulled up AI just to see what the difference was between factory disk and burnt disk, and this is what it says. If you were looking at pure physical longevity, factory press regular disk win by a landslide. Standard burnt disk are actually one of the worst choices you can make for long-term archiving. The difference between factory press retail game disk and home burn disk comes down to a fundamental difference in physics, chemistry, and hardware capability. While they look similar from the top, they are manufactured using entirely different technologies, which is why a retail disk will almost always outlive and outperform a burnt copy. For factory press disk, when a company like Sony manufactures a retail game, they use a glass master to physically stamp or mold data directly onto the polycarbonate plastic substrate. The data exists as a microscopic physical bumps, pits, and lands. A highly reflective layer of aluminum is then applied over those physical plastic bumps. The data is the structural plastic itself. And when it comes to burnt disk, a blank recordable disk contains a completely flat layer of organic chemical dye sandwiched inside the plastic. When you burn a game, your PC's drive laser shoots intense heat at the die, creating dark, chemically altered spots to simulate the look of physical pits. Because of this core engineering difference, pressed disk went out. Because homemade discs rely on organic chemical compound, they are highly vulnerable to environmental decay. Over time, the organic dye naturally breaks down, shifts, and fades. Exposure to UV light from standard room lighting, ambient heat, or humidity drastically accelerates this process, causing what collectors call dye rot. A standard cheap burnt disc can easily become completely unreadable within 2 to 10 years. Pressed discs have no organic dye to degrade. The only real threat is moisture slowly oxidizing the internal aluminum layer, which is disc rot. But if kept indoors in standard jewel cases, a factory pressed disc can easily last 30 to 100 years without losing a single bit of data. So while I think burning disc is an awesome idea, it's not something that I'm going to trust that's going to last forever. And since a lot of us don't have access to the factory to press our own disc, the idea of burning our disc is just nonsense when it comes to preservation aspect. And on top of burnt disc being just inferior in general, the reality that we have to not only purchase the game digitally, but now we're expected to pay for blank Blu-ray disc on top of the game. How many people are going to have a device to burn those Blu-ray discs, which can range from $30 up into the hundreds of dollars? And what if you want artwork on the disc? You gotta buy some kind of vinyl sticker paper to print on that as well, adding even more money to the process. And finally, if you want a case that holds your disc, you gotta buy your own cases, which can cost a pretty penny as well. So we've went from buying video games at $70, which include all this stuff, to still paying the same price, because we all know digital games aren't cheaper, and add on all the expenses of burning the disc and creating all the packaging ourselves, while also losing the hours and days of your time trying to figure all this stuff out. In what reality are people actually going to do this, outside of the hardcore enthusiast? And when it comes to Luis saying you should just download your games like GOG and forget about disc, can Luis honestly say that he's going to download every single game that he owns on a hard drive, like as a digital backup? How is that even going to be possible for anyone with a big library? I have 1,000 digital games on Steam, Epic, GOG, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Do you realize how many terabytes of storage it would take to hold all those games? Let's just do some basic math. If you have 1,000 games and estimate them out to be like 50 gigs each, which is pretty conservative since most AAA games are well over 100 now. I think Destiny 2 was over 200 gigabytes the last time I downloaded it. But just for this example, 1,000 games at 50 gigabytes comes out to 50 terabytes of storage. A 48 terabyte hard drive on Western Digital's website will run you $2,584. And that's still not enough to hold my current catalog. What about the next 10 or 20 years? I guess I'll just throw another $2,584 on there. On top of that, hard drives fail all the time. I just lost an external hard drive the other day and lost 5 terabytes of storage and gameplay. So no, I don't trust hard drives like I used to. With disk, you can have thousands of gigabytes of games stored safely on your shelves for decades. Each one of these game cases has a disk inside. If one of those disks fails, you lose one game and you just go get a replacement copy. But if that one massive hard drive fails, say goodbye to your entire collection all at once. And the ultimate question is, what happens if GOG goes offline? You won't be able to download those games at all. Being DRM free doesn't matter if the files are completely gone. You still rely on their company servers to download that DRM product, unless you have 100 terabytes of storage to put everything on it. You just gotta pray that hard drive never fails. So for the people saying that disks still rely on servers for day one patches, yeah, that's true for a handful of releases. And I think we should always call out those shitty disk practices. But at least for most disks, I won't need a network, and I won't have to drop $2,000 on a massive hard drive. Again, I'll take my game disk any day of the week. At least the ones that don't force an internet connection down my throat. Do you ever wonder why a great video game suddenly vanishes from the digital storefronts? If it's a sports game or a racing game from EA, for example, it's not a glitch in the system. It's usually a legal clock that's just ended. EA relies heavily on third-party licenses for their games. They'll make deals with leagues like the NFL or major car brands, but they only last about 5 or 6 years. These publishers are always going to choose saving money over preservation. Renewing those contracts become expensive, especially with hundreds of player likenesses that expire, team logos, and copyrighted soundtracks. If an old game is no longer printing money, EA is just going to pull the plug and delist it, which I don't necessarily blame them for the digital version, but having a physical version, you could still keep all of this. A perfect example is Madden 09. I'm a lifelong Packers fan and I love having this game. Brett Favre is my favorite player of all time, but this game has been delisted for a long time. The licenses for all the players have expired, so you won't be able to go back and experience this game that maybe you played in high school, unless you have the physical copy. This is exactly why digital-only future is so dangerous, man. When corporations have total control of the digital marketplace, you aren't going to be able to go back and find those older games, especially older sports titles and racing games. Or look at my favorite racing game, the arcade racing masterpiece Blur. It isn't backwards compatible at all, meaning it's completely stuck on older hardware. And it's actually even worse than just being delisted on console. You can't even go buy that game digitally on Steam anymore. The game's music and car license expired on there as well. The digital version is just completely extinct. The only way to experience it today is if you buy an Xbox 360 or PS3 disc. Another example is X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was delisted because Activision's license with Marvel expired as well, but you can still play it if you have a disc. 007 Quantum of Solace and 007 Bloodstone have been delisted because the James Bond license expired. And the same goes for Bourne Conspiracy. These are the games I won't sell. I'm always going to keep these copies. And then there's another niche example I kind of want to talk about. It's called Immortal Unchained, which is a really underrated Souls game with guns. The game used to be on the PlayStation Store, but as of 2026, if you want to buy it digitally on console, good luck. The PlayStation Store's game page is just a wishlist page stuck in limbo, because the game's license was sold and never fixed. If you want a digital copy, it's only available on Steam, or you can get a physical copy off of like eBay or something. Then we have The Sinking City, which was completely delisted because of publisher issues. The game was actually missing from digital stores for 3.5 years. And if it wasn't for Frogwares caring so much about that IP, they probably would have left it in limbo. Or look at the original Alan Wake, my favorite game of all time. It was entirely delisted for over a year because of the music licenses. Luckily, Remedy was able to renew them, and the game was put back on digital stores. But for how much longer? 10, 15 years? I just wonder how long Remedy is going to keep renewing it. Remedy's games don't do gangbusters, so it's very possible they could get shut down someday. I would literally hate that, but at that point their games and licenses are all left in limbo. Unless someone buys them up and renews the licenses, it's a very good possibility my favorite game of all time will eventually just be gone forever. But you know what? I'll always have my physical copies. And probably the most infamous example of digital rights being completely destroyed happened back in 2014, when PT was completely removed from the store. Even if you had downloaded it and it was in your download history, you still couldn't re-download it. The only way to keep it was to never delete it from your hard drive. But you know, eventually my hard drive is going to fail and PT will be gone forever. I know it was just a demo for Silent Hills, but a physical version of that on a disc could have saved it forever. I think a lot of us have forgotten the month-long outage of PSN back in 2011 that lasted for over 24 days. At the time, it was one of the largest security breaches in history, where 70 million people's accounts information was hacked. Back then, having a disk was a godsend. You couldn't even access your digital libraries, and the disk was the only way you could play your games. Who says this couldn't happen with the PS6? And I will say, even if I do end up getting a PS6 for a specific game like Days Gone 2, Last of Us Part 3, or Uncharted 5, that will be all it's for. The PS6 will essentially become an exclusives machine for me. And if Sony stays with this digital strategy, PS6 will never be anything more than the second console to me. And it really makes you wonder, does the end of disc mean the end of game cases as well? Are they still even giving us something to put on our shelves? Will everything look like Grand Theft Auto 6, where the depressing case is just empty? Are they going to completely pull boxes off the shelves and just leave us with those cheap digital cards hanging on the pegs at the store? They think game cases and discs don't matter anymore, but my kids, even though they love their tablets and our phones from time to time, they are enamored by my physical collection. They pull them off the shelves and look at them all the time, and ask me to play them. And guess what? One day I'll pass them down to them. Good luck doing that with the digital collection. If you want to protect your game library and truly own your games, I suggest keep buying disc, at least the good ones. That's the real tragedy of this whole thing. They used to be the company that stood on stage in 2013 and gave a list of reasons why used games and disc are great for the consumer. They're the ones that quickly recorded a video of two executives exchanging used game. Where the hell is that, Sony? Now they're just a hollow corporation machine trying to trap us in a closed ecosystem where we absolutely own nothing. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Don't forget that the only reason Microsoft reversed their disastrous policy back in 2013 is because the entire gaming community stood up and said hell no. We forced their hand by refusing to buy into that vision. Sony really is on the clock. They may stick by their decision now, but we have a year and a half to convince them otherwise. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple weeks, whether I think they'll reverse this decision or not, and I really don't think they will. But I say that with one caveat. I don't think this leadership team will. They are the most stubborn executive team I've ever seen. They're the ones that can lose $400 million on one live service game, and then come out and say they're not giving up on live service games. If you want to save money, give up on that crap rather than disc. But you know what? A lot can happen in a year and a half, and I'm starting to think one or maybe both of these guys are going to get fired before the PS6 even comes out. And maybe, just maybe, PlayStation can have their Asha Sharma moment too, where a new CEO can come in and change the direction completely. That's what I'm hoping for. But we got to do it by voting with our wallets. Show them that we want physical. Go out and buy physical as much as you can. Avoid digital completely. Don't fall for the midnight launch hype. Wait till the next day and ship your games. We can do it, guys. It's going to be hard, even when games come out that we really, really want. But if we want physical games saved, it's something we got to do. We got to sacrifice for now. Let's skew the metrics back the other way. And until they see the error of their ways, I'm not buying the PS6. I'll just go elsewhere, man, and continue to catch up on my backlog. And honestly, I think everyone should do the same. Now let me ask you guys this. Are you buying the PS6? Do you feel that Sony has lost their mojo? Have they went from Sony to phony? Let me know down in the comments. But with all that said, thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay in the light, my friends. Later.